I'm from Hazard, Kentucky. Actually, Perry County, but basically the same, which is a part of the Appalachian Mountains. My parents live very deep in the mountains, and I began seeing odd things in their house as early as 5 years old. My mom also grew up here and reports that odd haunted types of things have always gone on at the house. I was never really allowed to watch horror movies about ghosts or shows like Ghost Hunters growing up because of the nature of the house, and I slept with my mom until I was around 13 because I was scared after seeing so many things at home. One night, however, we decided to watch the Ghost Adventure Waverly Hills episode. That night I woke up around 3 a.m. to that feeling of something watching over me. I could feel it as soon as I woke. The feeling of evil and malice in the air. I rolled over and locked eyes with something standing beside my mom's side of the bed. Its skin was inhumanely pale, and this is coming from a redhead. It was slouched over and seemed as if it would never be able to straighten all the way up if it wanted to. The skin looked as if bones were sticking out and fingers were extremely long and clawed. The face was sunken in and the eyes hollow black holes, seemingly. It appeared to have a few greasy-looking hairs on its head, totally naked, but no genitals that I could see. I stupidly left my mom to fend for herself and covered myself totally up under the covers. I laid awake the whole night sweating bullets. My mom woke the next day and raised her shirt and asked what in the world had happened. She had claw marks down her side. They were so bad that they were bloody and the fingers looked as though they'd been stacked on top of each other almost. I wish we had a photo of this, but at the time this happened, it was probably around 2007 or 2008. That would have placed me around 7 to 8 years old, and cameras weren't as around in your face as they are today, so we didn't think to take a picture. Prior to this, I had seen the creature once beforehand, but it didn't injure anyone. One night I woke and saw it on my side of the bed. I hid under the covers that night as well, but when I dared to peek out, it was still there hours later. This was before the first incident that I described, and once again, it didn't hurt anyone the first time. It was gone the next morning when daylight hit and finally came out from under the covers. The story may read like a creepypasta, but it's very real. I never saw the creature again after the incident where it harmed my mom, but every time I drive down a dark back road, I think of it. I know I was not asleep or imagining things when I saw this. I wanted to share my story to find more related ones close by. I've heard a lot of strange stories from people in my area, but none of this creature. It sounds stupid, but the best comparison for the appearance of this creature is the creepypasta for the RAKE. It looks almost identical. I would like to clarify that this did not impact me imagining this. I did not even have internet access until 2009 or 2010, and didn't discover creepypastas until much later. In the past, people have called it a crawler, but I'm not sure what this would be considered. My parents also live at this same house. I've been a skeptic ever since knowing of these things. I have avoided saying the word in the post title, and whenever they're mentioned, I abruptly stop the conversation and do everything in my power to distract myself from the word in order to prevent them from being driven toward me. For this reason, I'll be using the word creature instead. Frankly, I'm not entirely sure if this thing really was a SW creature. It could be something similar, but I digress. These are the one thing that I have consistently avoided since adolescence. At writing, it is 3:11 in the morning, and this occurred about 20 minutes ago. I was on my way home from a friend's place, a bit groggy and feeling a bit down. I live about 30 minutes away in a small rural area. I try to keep a good eye on the road at this time as we live in deer country, and I don't want to hit anything. Throughout the drive, I did so like normal, and all was well until turning off the highway into the road leading to my house. There was a large, low-visibility hill right at the intersection to said road. As I crossed the horizon of the hill, there was the creature, sitting motionless, tongue out, staring at my vehicle. It took the form of a dog, sort of brown and black and splotchy. However, I'm 100% certain this was not a dog. Its eyes were large and lifeless. It didn't move. Only a twitch of the ear was visible. That's the only way that I knew it was real. It was hunched over like some sort of gargoyle. Instantly, I went to honk at it, but as some of my fingers grazed my horn, I was paralyzed in fear. I couldn't freaking move. It was just there, hauntingly staring. It was the eyes. The absolutely ungodly eyes. Dread consumed me, and I hit the gas and turned onto the road. This is a gravel road, mind you, and I sped all the way home, about 4 kilometers away, and I've locked myself in my room ever since. I can't move, and I sure as hell can't sleep. I don't understand why this creature was drawn to me. Perhaps my avoidance drove it closer? Nonetheless, I'm absolutely freaking petrified, and certain that thing was not a dog or anything of the sort. I apologize if this writing is poor. I'm terrified and not thinking straight, and sure as hell not going to sleep anytime soon. Any thoughts would be great, and for a little more information, I live near the Rocky Mountains, if it helps. Dear Raven, may I first take this opportunity to thank you sincerely for providing a judgment-free home for the weird, phenomenal, paranormal, unexplainable, odd, and glitchy true stories. Of course, thank you for listening. In doing so, you've given so many people confirmations, validations, and what I believe to be most important, you've given us all a place where we can finally feel like we belong. I'm grateful and sense that you have finally given my truth a voice. I have another Ozark's Oracle story for you. This is the story that brought me to the conclusion that my life was fated to be different than most, and that the word normal would never describe me or my daily life. I was quite young at the time. The year was 1990 or 1991. I believe I was 17, and I still remember every detail of what happened, along with the intense physical sensations, sounds, and sights of the night with extreme clarity. It was mid-October. I had lived in Springfield, Missouri for less than a year. I'd grown up in a very small rural town, and being in a metropolitan area was still quite new to me. And due to the small town phenomenon of everyone knowing everyone, I was dating a guy who was cousins of one of my closest friends from the small town who had recently moved to Springfield from his small town home with his parents. I also had a few cousins living in Springfield at the time. It's a college town and the biggest city in the Ozarks, so people tend to move there after high school looking for work and independence, which is what had brought me there as well. One of my cousins, Kim, had invited my boyfriend Doug and I over for a party. In doing so, she indicated that she wanted to introduce me to her pets, and that my boyfriend could see them too. When I gave her a puzzled look, she tells me that her pets, or rather the pets of her now husband, Aaron, are a mated pair of timber wolves. Yes, in a quiet neighborhood on the east side of the city, my crazy-ass cousin had not one but 2 fully grown apex predators behind a chain-link fence, of all things. I say this because I've owned several dogs smart enough to literally unstitch the stuff. I knew immediately that she meant it as some sort of honor that I was selected to meet her pets. That's just how the hillbilly culture works. If a person shares some secret activity, possession, project, or alternative/cheaper means, it indicates trust and respect. And this sort of gesture is expected to be met with warm appreciation, but I was confounded, wondering if I indeed had to let my jaw hit the floor when she so casually said this. She even laughed as she told me how they had to buy a 10-foot tall section of chain link, bury it 3 foot, and include a chain link covering over the backyard as well, just in order to keep them from escaping. Noting that now was a good time for me to meet them because they were not currently separated due to the breeding cycle of the female. My boyfriend and I both hit her with a barrage of questions, but agreed to accept her invitation, curious to see these wolves for ourselves. As it turned out, the night of the party, dark, ominous clouds had rolled into the area and the entire city was under a severe thunderstorm warning, with widespread lightning strikes said to be lighting up the sky from early evening into the next day. Believe it or not, my cousin was excited that it would be storming the night of her party, because she, her husband, and their crowd were all heavy metal fans and they believed they could play their music much louder without disturbing the neighbors amidst the sounds of the thunderstorm. It made sense to me, so I tried to embrace the same vibe. That evening, I put on my blackest eyeliner, a concert t-shirt, and jeans, but left my hair in a ponytail. No need to waste hairspray on a rainy night. I was excited to see Doug pull up at 6 p.m. We made the short drive to my cousin's from the central part to the east side, and Doug parked his 5-speed blue Pontiac Grand Am parallel on the street in front of her house, in a neighborhood of brick houses. All upper-middle-class places that did not appear at all like a place where someone could keep a hold of 2 apex predators in the backyard, without anyone noticing. I decided not to question it, believing my cousin had some large shepherd mixed dogs back there and not actual wolves. We walked to the door, hearing loud metal music already blaring and loud off-key howling coming from inside the house. That was clearly coming from the people inside, not timberwolves. So Doug and I look at each other and shrug with smiles, and as we do, lightning flashes bright across the sky in the west. We have time to give each other a verbal woo before he knocks on the door, and we chuckle. The moment my cousin opens the door, the loud boom of thunder finally sounds, and we're all startled. We go inside and tell them about the cool lightning and thunder that seemed to be timed perfectly with our entrance. We weren't familiar with terms like synchronicities at the time, and I still believed coincidences were possible. In hearing about the streak lightning, and how long it took to thunder, my cousin-in-law Aaron says now would be a great time to watch a lightning show. The saying we all wholeheartedly believed in was that after a lightning strike, you could count the seconds until it thunders, and that's how many miles away the storm is from your location. He watched the lightning outside and counted, waiting for the thunder, and said that the storm was still more than 10 miles away, and we could watch it moving west to east across the city best from the rooftop. It was not yet raining, so the roof wouldn't be slick, and it would be an amazing light show with Metallica's Ride the Lightning playing in the background. We all agreed to this like the reckless heathens that we were and waited for Aaron to load the CD before fetching us a ladder from the backyard to access the front roof. Once he returned with the ladder and the group of all 8 of us lined up to follow Aaron outside, that's when Kim grabbed my elbow to hold me back and say, "Wait, you have to meet the wolves first." "Oh, okay. I'd almost forgotten with all the excitement about the storm," I replied. I followed her from the living room through the kitchen and out a sliding glass door into a huge backyard with an in-ground pool, an unusually high privacy fence, and to my astonishment, along the north side was a chain link enclosure with 2 enormous wolves pacing. There's just no mistaking them for domestic dog breeds. These were definitely wolves. Knowing more about them now, I'd guess they were gray wolves, but they were scary big. Both dark in color with glowing yellow eyes that flashed red in the lightning. In the half second, I locked eyes with the larger of the 2 and I felt him look right through me. And then I heard a deep, raspy male voice say, "Witch," in a drawn-out whisper. As I forced myself to look away and break eye contact, all the hair on the back of my neck stood up and the slightly smaller female wolf began howling. The sound was so hauntingly familiar. I felt its resonance deep inside my chest and my body began to tingle all over. Then, the others started howling too, and I blurted out, "Peace, sister, peace, brother." And they both fell silent and laid down. My cousin then grabs me at the elbow again and says, "I knew they would like you. You've always had a way with dogs. I don't usually get this close to them without Aaron." It's at this time that I realize that we're standing maybe 6 inches outside the enclosure, but I could have sworn that I had only taken a step or two at the most outside the back door before I froze in place at the sight of these things. Seriously, it's breathtaking. And I remember thinking in that moment of realization, my God, these things could kill us both. All of a sudden, I turn around and run toward the house, hearing Kim running behind me. She's always been faster and gets to the sliding glass door ahead of me, where she gives me a stern look while putting her index finger to her lips, making a shush sign. We walk in calmly like nothing happened and join the procession out the front door, as if we were with the group the entire time. I'm wondering how it could have taken this long for 6 people to get out the front yard, and when thunder crashes loudly and a couple of people start voicing concerns about safety. Doug, trying to fit in, speaks up and says that he's going up the ladder first, since the storm came in with us, so I say I'm second. We climb the ladder to the cheers of our host and the other guests. Aaron quickly follows, the other couple, Shanna, my cousin's best friend and her boyfriend, Ryan follows, and then Kim. I'm standing in front of Doug with his arms around me from behind, waiting to see the lightning, and then whispered to him quickly that there really are 2 wolves in the backyard. He chuckled "Yeah, sure." And I shot him the "I'm so serious right now" look. He then shrugged his shoulders and says, "That was amazing." Lightning had just sent streaks in 3 directions. The thunder followed less than 10 seconds away, though. The storm clouds were blackening as we watched, and the darkness wasn't creeping in. It was speeding toward us. I'd been counting the seconds after each lightning strike. When I counted to 3, I announced that 3 miles away was close enough for me, and that I could see and smell the rain coming. "I'm getting down now," I said, and without thinking, I ran to the opposite side of the roof to look for the ladder. About the time I climb onto the ladder, I realized that we all climbed up on the other side, but I started climbing down anyways. I had gotten down far enough that my head was just below the roof line when Aaron appears at the top and yells, "Get down that ladder, cousin, we're all coming down too." After everyone had gotten inside safely, the rain started pouring like a switch was flipped on, and then the next lightning strike and thunderclap were simultaneous and hit the house. We all stood in a collective silence, until the next lightning strike flashed through the dark house, and Kim started flicking her Bic lighter to see her way into the kitchen in search of emergency candles. When she returned with a few lit candles, we all found seats and were trying to catch our breath, excitedly chatting about our close call. Kim sets down the candles and asks me, "How did you know where the ladder was?" "You all remember we climbed up in the front yard, right?" Everyone agreed. I didn't know how to answer, but I replied with a shoulder shrug and said, "I don't know, I was scared and ran away from the direction of the threat." I followed that immediately with, "Hey, let's smoke some," to change the subject, and take all the questioning eyes off me. Doug quickly pulled out a doobie and fired it up. Please remember that we didn't have terms like glitch in the Matrix in the early 1990s, and we were neck deep in the Bible Belt. And I'd been wearing a label of weirdo and freak since childhood because of unexplained and paranormal events often occurring in my presence, regardless of where I was or who I was with. At the time, I was still uncomfortable with and often embarrassed by the strange occurrences in my life, and what I would later come to know as my many gifted abilities. I used marijuana to hide from them, and myself, at the time. I later learned to utilize its calming effects as a meditation aid. I believe it's especially helpful to achieve meditative states for those of us with noisy heads. If you know, you know. The 8 of us puffed and passed, and while we did, I whispered to Doug that I was ready to leave. Once we finished, Doug and I told the group we were going for a cruise to continue watching the lightning storm and grab a bite to eat. We hit the closest fast food place and headed east, the direction of the storm was moving, in search of a secluded place to park. We were teenagers and we wanted to make out, too. We didn't drive long and arrived in an area known as Valley Water Mill, a man-made waterfall on the southeast edge of Springfield Lake that I believe was constructed by the water department. We parked facing northwest and pulled out our takeout. While we ate and chatted, the rain stopped, but the frequent lightning streaking across the sky hadn't stopped, and we started talking about it. We both made statements that neither of us had ever seen so much lightning in a single storm, that it had only been a few hours and it felt like there had been several hundred, if not 1,000 strikes. And then I heard it. It was a loud humming noise at first. Then it got louder and became a clear buzz noise. As I asked Doug if he can hear it too, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and then I feel as if all my hair is standing on end, and I can feel this deep buzz noise in my chest like an intense vibration. I blurt out in almost a shout, "It's coming from over here!" I turned my head to look out my window, and in that instant, fire shot out of the ground above the window line. Not but maybe 10 inches away. And in the blink of an eye, lightning struck the exact spot. Doug and I both screamed as it struck, and the thunder came instantly. He dropped his Grand Am into first and punched the gas. I hadn't turned my gaze from the passenger window when I felt the car jerk into motion, and as I turned to face the front, we see a huge snow-white owl in front of us. Wings spread wider than our windshield, but with no time to react on wet streets, Doug couldn't stop. And we ended up hitting this magnificent creature. I remember the sense of awe that had felt like it wrapped itself around me at the sight of the owl, and how it felt as if time slowed down. And it took several long minutes for us to drive into the owl, but I knew that it all had happened in seconds. The owl had met the windshield and fell immediately onto the hood. The wings draped over both edges of the hood, and the moment the vehicle came to a stop, Doug put it in neutral and pulled the e-brake. We both hopped out. I was in a panic. I kept saying, "This is bad. This is bad, bad, bad. We killed a spirit guy, Doug. This is bad. This is bad." Tears were streaming down my face and my entire body was trembling. "What do we do? How do we make it right?" Doug yelled, over the almost continuous thunder as lightning continued to strike all around us. I don't know how I knew what to say, but I matter-of-factly yelled back, "We have to take the body to bury, and offer the great owl spirit tobacco and other herbs to apologize and pay for what we did." Doug reached for a large wing feather, trying to pull it free. The owl slid off the hood with a thud onto the wet pavement. I watched in utter shock as the owl's eyes opened wide, and then it lets out a horrible shriek, striking with its beak at Doug's right arm as he shrieks in pain. The owl is now in the air, kind of. One claw has a hold of Doug's forearm and the other is slashing at his upper arm. Its bigger than windshield wide wings were flapping all they could. It was desperately trying to free itself, obviously frightened, having come back to consciousness with a 6'4", 280-pound man trying to pluck a feather. I was screaming in terror, "Let go!" as I watched this fiasco take place in front of me. After a few minutes of this, Doug heaves himself down to the pavement, intending to escape the owl's razor-sharp claws, I assumed. The feather broke free as he hits the ground, and the owl, free of him, locks eyes with me, and then flies directly toward me. And as I start to pull my head back, expecting to have to drop to keep it from hitting me, it swoops straight up, like 6 inches from my face. I didn't feel any breeze, air moving from its flight, but oddly enough, I caught a whiff of a familiar smell. I would recognize that smell anywhere, but had never smelled it but the one place on Earth that could possibly smell like that specific smell. My spooky granny's house. It took me a few minutes to lower my chin, My gaze had followed the owl up, and I watched it continue to fly up into the storm until it disappeared. When I did lower my gaze, I see Doug standing before me. A bloody mess on one side, but surprisingly his slash marks are many and not deep. He's holding his right hand where he was beak bitten with his left hand, and in his right hand is a beautiful snow-white feather with not a drop of blood on it. I was shaking uncontrollably and crying. I lifted my hand with that accusing index finger gesture. I pointed at him and said, "This is bad. It's bad." My hand fell limply to the side, and I remember whispering, "Oh no," as I watched the darkness closing in around me. Tunnel vision was taking me, and I was seconds from collapsing. I recognized what was about to happen, but was powerless to stop it or help myself. Much to my pleasant surprise, when I came to, I was inside Doug's car. He was kneeled between the door and where he had set me, wiping my wet hair from my face. Once I could speak, I said, "I don't feel anything." Doug answered, "That's because I caught you." "How bad are you hurt?" I asked him, and he said that he needs stitches on his hand, but he wants to go home and clean up first. I agree. He shuts my door, and as he walks around to his, he kneeled over and picked up the feather. We drove back to his place and bumped into his dad while searching for first aid supplies in the hallway closet. Doug gives his dad a brief but honest rundown of the night we had, as I'm silently freaking out in my head. I don't think I could have told my mom what really happened, or if she would have believed me, but when Doug's dad says to him, "She's right, you've offended the Great Owl's spirit and you have to fix this. I can't believe you took a feather," I'm brought back into the current moment. His dad says that he has to make some phone calls and tells us to go clean up his wounds, telling Doug to put on a snap-down long sleeve when he's done. We had landlines then, and no one made calls after 10 p.m. unless it was an emergency. This added to the anxiety now riding like a weight in the pit of my stomach. I follow Doug into the bathroom, and I start dabbing a cotton ball with clear solution. It says wound wash in black Sharpie on the bottle. I shrugged and proceeded to use it. As gently as I could, I wiped clean the many slash marks on his hand. When I'm done, I say, "Okay, let's see it. We gotta clean it out first, and then I'm using peroxide and alcohol to try to prevent this infection." Doug then pulls his left hand from his right. He'd held it the entire time. I worked the gear shift on our way home from the passenger seat for him so he could keep pressure on it, but there was nothing but dried blood where the mark from its beak should have been. We were both staring in disbelief. "What the hell?" we both asked at the same time. His dad walks in, looks him up, and says, "I thought you needed stitches, wussy." "I did," Doug exclaims, and I added, "The bite mark is gone. I watched that thing bite him." "Well, let's not look a gift horse in the mouth around here," his dad stated. He then turned to Doug and said, "Doc's waiting for you. He'll be back in the office when you get there. Take her home on your way, not after." And he throws Doug his keys and says, "I'll have your car taken care of tomorrow." I didn't understand this because the windshield nor the hood were actually damaged. As we were walking out, his dad instructs him to take the damned feather with him to the doc's office. We were both quiet on the drive to my house. I asked one question. "Does your dad know a doctor or something?" His reply was, "No, my great uncle is a vet." I left it at that. My mind was swirling with the images of the night and memories of fire shooting up from the ground. When he dropped me off, I was thinking, I'll never see him again. But he kissed me softly and said with a chuckle, "It's always an adventure with you, little one." I gave him a sly smile and said, "You want to rent a movie and stay in tomorrow night?" To which he said, "Yeah, see you at 6, as I shut the door and then went inside. I collapsed on my bed and didn't wake until Doug knocked on my door the following evening. I noticed when I walked him out to his car after the movie that he was now driving a burgundy Grand Am with an automatic transmission. I point at it in question, and he says, "My dad took care of my car." Again, I decided to just leave it at that. This particular night seemed set in stone for me. I wasn't like everyone else. Strange things happened to me, around me, and for me, and that those around me were at a significant risk of experiencing these phenomena too. And as the years have continued to reveal many unbelievable but undeniable truths to me, I've heard those exact words. It's always an adventure with you, on many occasions from a variety of people. Each time, I get a flash of a magnificent white owl. By the way, it was several years later when I learned that lightning is actually an optical illusion, and it's known to begin with the Earth shooting up fire, and that the Ozarks is not a known habitat for the snowy white owl. I have no logical explanations for the events of this night, but I do know that it was the first step of a lifelong quest to better understand the spirit realms and the beliefs about spirit guides, spirit animals, totem animals, familiars, and the like. And I can tell y'all that this was the first of many strange encounters involving owls. But to this day, I've never seen another snowy white owl, not even in captivity. Until next time, Raven. Hey Raven, it's Chrissy here again. I've got a story that's a bit off the beaten path, and I know you love a good mystery. So picture this. I'm wandering through this quiet, old library, smelling the books, just looking for a particular novel, when I catch a glimpse of someone between the shelves. And not just anyone, someone who looks exactly like me. And I mean a dead ringer. We lock eyes, and it's like looking into a living mirror. Her eyes are my eyes, and in that moment, 100 wild thoughts start rushing through my head. And this time, it's not just my ADHD. You know me, I've always had a thing for those conspiracy theories. The ones about the elite secretly cloning themselves, or how it only takes 8 years to grow a full human copy. And here I am staring at someone who could be my clone, even though I'm definitely not rich enough to have ordered one. But it gets weirder. I start thinking about all those stories. Maybe they're sending clones to Mars and it's a backup for Earth and it's way more populated than we're told, or hiding them on the dark side of the moon where there's supposedly a secret city. And of course, I remember David Paulides and those missing 411 cases, and people who just disappear without a trace. Maybe they're all part of some grand experiment and I'm face to face with living proof. Then, just when I think it's over, I see her again at a hospital, after my surgery a few days later. She spots me too, and there's this flicker of recognition, like she knows me. Twice in 1 week? No way, it's a coincidence. No way did she get a bust appendicitis too. And just happened to be in the next bed over? So what the heck is going on? Did they do something to me? Take something? And to top it all off, I've noticed these men in black types hanging around my ward. Pale skin, black suits, straight out of a UFO encounter story. I swear one of them even hinted that I shouldn't talk about what I saw. Like a big hint. I won't go into that, but here I am telling you anyway. This might be my last story, but I've never been one for backing down from threats. I'm a fighter, not a fleeting kind of girl. So yeah, that's my strange little rabbit hole of a week. I hope you enjoy it, Raven. And take care. P.S. Could patients handle 2 of you? No. I can't even handle 1 of me. Hey everyone. Especially folks in or around Pike County, Indiana. Fair warning, I'm not sure if this would be Bigfoot related or not, exactly. I'm more so investigating if it could be or not. Also, I don't want to post personal stuff like this, but I had an experience a while back that I haven't really been able to shake, and I'm wondering if anyone else has seen anything similar. Late one night, approximately 2009-2010, on a rural road outside near Pike County, Indiana, I saw something that doesn't match anything I've ever heard of. I wasn't alone, my cousins were with me, and they saw it too. It was a figure walking upright. 2 legs, no doubt about that. It wasn't huge, probably about my height or a little shorter, but very skinny and completely pitch black, almost like it absorbed the light around it. But the part that stuck with me most was the eyes. They were glowing bright blue. Not reflected like animal eyes in headlights, these looked like they had their own light source. Full-on, icy blue. It didn't growl or make any sound. It didn't seem scared or aggressive. It just looked at us like it acknowledged us. And then it walked across the road and into the woods like we weren't even there. We were all frozen for a second and then just said, "Did you guys see that?" And they both said, "Yeah." We left. I'm not claiming anything supernatural, but I lived in Pike County a long time, and I've never seen anything like this. Not a bear, not a bobcat, not anything local that I could explain. And honestly, I've never heard anyone talk about bright blue eyes on anything like this. So I figured I'd ask. Has anyone else around here or anywhere else seen anything like that? Especially with those blue eyes. I'm just trying to see if this is a one-off, or if there's more to this. Hey there, friends. How are you doing on this lovely day? Hopefully the answer's well. This was a collection of strange and scary stories, partially from listeners, partially from Reddit. It was a good one. Interesting stories. Some interesting stories out in the Kentucky, Indiana area, like over there. Are those connected? I think so. I'm decent at geography, but not off the top of my head, like thinking about the area over there. Anyways, a lot of interesting creatures over there that people have seen, and I like those stories, humanoid ones. Yeah. Hopefully you enjoyed them too. If you did, please do consider hitting that like button on the video. That'd be awesome of you. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard and want more content like this, consider subscribing. You can also leave me a comment with your thoughts down below. I appreciate hearing from listeners. Always, always, always. If you have a story you want to share, or you'd like to follow me on social media platforms, read some of the fictional stories I've read, read some of the fictional stories I've written, and find me on other platforms for my podcast, go to astheravendreams.com. You can also email your stories to astheravendreams@gmail.com. You can join Patreon or memberships to get early access to content like this and other things. There's a lot of content right now. It's kind of dwindled a little bit just because things in life and such, but still quite a bit. So, anyways, friends, hope you have a wonderful day. Hope I see you again here very soon. But until then, remember that you are loved, you are valid, you are important, and the world's a better place with you in it. Until next time, my friends, much love, and sleep well.